Callirhoe, 1st century, by Chariton. Hermocrates, the Syracusan general who had defeated the Athenians, had a daughter called Callirhoe. This girl was an amazing example of femininity and an icon for all of Sicily, for her beauty was not merely mortal, but of a sort which is practically divine. Eros wanted to have his say in the tying of any matrimonial knots. For there was a certain handsome young man called Chaereas whose beauty surpassed all others. Chaereas was walking home from the gymnasium, gleaming like a star. The rosy glow from exercise was added to the natural bloom of his radiant face, just like gold inlaid on silver. As chance would have it, they both approached a certain rather narrow bend in the road, and walked straight into each other. It was love at first sight for both of them, a true union of beauty and nobility. The wedding hymn was sung throughout the city, and the streets were full of garlands and torches while the doorways were sprinkled with wine and perfumed oil. For the other suitors, failing in their object of marriage, mixed bitter disappointment with their anger. Previously fighting among themselves, at this point they found themselves on common ground. As a result of this, and because they considered themselves to have been insulted, they met to take counsel together, and envy became their strategic advisor in the war against Chaereas. The ruler from Auguste said, "Chaereas, bred in the gymnasium, is not without experience of the follies of youth and is quite capable of becoming suspicious and being struck by a young man's fierce jealousy." Even as he was still speaking, everyone voted in favor of the plan, and they put the job in his hands as a man with the capability to carry anything out. He then began planning such a scheme. When evening came, Chaereas went to his lookout point, and the other man, who had seduced Callirhoe's maidservant, rushed into the narrow lane, acting like one who was plotting to carry out secret deeds and was taking every care to escape anyone's notice. When the sound of footsteps reached her, Callirhoe at once realized that it was her husband by the sound of his breathing, and joyfully ran to greet him. He had no voice left to reproach her, but overcome as he was by anger, he kicked her as she approached. His well-aimed foot caught her just beneath her diaphragm and robbed the girl of her breath. Callirhoe lay without speaking or breathing, giving the appearance of someone who was dead to anyone who saw her. Rumor, the messenger of suffering, ran through all the city, arousing wailing throughout the streets right down to the sea. All were lamenting, but the grief of Chaereas was heard the loudest. The abundance of the funeral gifts filled this tomb as if it was some treasury. Right at the end came Chaereas' wealth. For he wanted, if it was possible, for all his possessions to be burnt along with his wife. The fine and noble tomb of Hermocrates' family was near the shore and was visible to those sailing far away. There was a man called Theron, one capable of any wickedness, who sailed the high seas pursuing a life of crime. Along with him there was a group of dubious characters. Theron said, "You have seen the gold and the silver belonging to the dead girl. It would be fairer for us, who are alive, to have this. So it seems to me a good plan to open the tomb during the night, then for us to embark on a light, speedy yacht and sail wherever the wind carries us and sell the booty abroad." Meanwhile, Callirhoe was experiencing a second birth. Slowly and little by little, her breathing returned, then she began to move each limb and then her body, and as she opened her eyes, she felt as if she was waking from sleep and called out to Chaereas expecting him to be asleep beside her. Then she remembered the kick and the fall which resulted from it and managed to work out that she must be in her tomb because she had been unconscious. When the crowbars were applied and a violent effort was made to open the tomb, all sorts of feelings seized Callirhoe at once. It seems more likely to be tomb robbers, and this misfortune is to be added to all the others. Theron stood for a moment deep in thought and at first decided to kill the woman on the grounds that she would get in the way of the whole enterprise, but he almost immediately changed his mind thinking of the additional profit. She can be part of the grave goods. There is lots of silver here, lots of gold, but the beauty of this woman is more valuable than all of that. Once launched, the boat made excellent progress. For they were not forcing themselves against the waves and the wind by setting their own course, but rather whatever direction the wind favored seemed good to them and they let it direct their prow. "Oh, father," she said, You defeated 300 Athenian ships in this sea, but now a small yacht has snatched your daughter from you and you can't do anything to help me. I am being taken to an alien land where I must become a slave, me, a nobly born girl. How much better it was for me to lie as a corpse in the tomb. Eventually Chaereas would have been united with me there, now we are parted whether we are alive or dead. Truly I am lost to you now, Chaereas, separated from you by so much sea.